The Legendary Axe is a platforming game for the Turbografx or PC Engine console, released in 1988 in Japan, and as a launch title when the console was released in North America in 1989. The story, described in the game's manual, is based on a fantasy-esque land, which is being terrorized by the cult of Jabu, led, unsurprisingly, by Jabu. The village of Minafu is required by the cult to once a year provide a villager for a human sacrifice, and this year it is apparently Flair, a young woman. When Gorgon returns to the village after training and studying far away, he sees his childhood friend Flair has been taken by the cult, and decides on the diplomatic step of wiping them out. It's basically a simple story of rescuing the girl from the clutches of evil, and you don't need much more of a story in these games, and you certainly don't need a reason to bring down an evil cult. Controlling Gogan, whose name is definitely not based on Conan, or the barbarian hero of the arcade game Rastan, you must make your way through the game's 6 levels before confronting Jabu himself. The game is a typical platformer, which has you traversing levels by jumping across platforms and attacking enemies using the legendary axe of the game's title, which is apparently called Sting. Yes, Sting. No, the axe does not transform and bring enemies to their knees with a rendition of Fields of Gold or Every Breath You Take. A unique mechanic the game has is that your axe can be powered up by collecting items hidden in the levels. Each additional level on your axe allows you to automatically charge its next attack, indicated by the meter at the top of the screen. The more the meter is allowed to fill, the more damage the axe will do. With each level, the meter can fill further, meaning your attacks do more and more damage. This mechanic is essential to mastering the game, as attacking wildly will only produce weak attacks, and you must learn when to attack to do the maximum amount of damage. The game takes place across 6 zones, with a boss waiting at the end of each level. Each level is fairly linear, but rewards exploration by having items hidden throughout. The graphics, or perhaps nothing special today, were a significant achievement in 1988. The Turbografx was the first 16-bit home console, and the game takes advantage of that, with colourful graphics that show off their capabilities within the different settings of the levels. This also extends to the enemies, which are also fairly detailed and nicely designed, allowing for memorable boss fights. Well, apart from the boss fight that is literally just a rock. In terms of the difficulty, the game is definitely difficult, but the majority of this is surmountable by learning enemies' attack patterns, and learning whether to jump or duck enemy attacks, and as mentioned, learning how to effectively use your attacks when they are charged up. The bosses similarly require a few attempts before working out their attack patterns, but if you're smart enough with your powered up attacks, you can just about brute force your way through them too. These strategies will serve you well for the first 4 zones: the forest, cave, jungle, other cave, but the 5th zone offers everybody's favourite, a maze level, where you have to go through the correct doors to reach the end of the level, and breaking out a pen and paper to draw your own map. The maze itself isn't too bad, as the game puts a letter next to the zone number, so you can keep track of where you are fairly easily. But some of the doors are fairly long corridors of enemies that will be a test of endurance. There are a few aspects that make the game more difficult more unfairly. Firstly, the jumping is a bit stiff, and there's not much control in mid-air. Sometimes you have enemies positioned just right so their attacks will knock you into a pit, which feels a bit cheap. But probably the most annoying thing for me was the vine jumping, which is extremely inconsistent. Where you jump onto the vine, and your momentum going into it, greatly affect your ability to make a jump, and I think most of the deaths I had in this game were due to trying to jump from one vine to another. Anyway, the final boss, Jabu, is especially tough, as you must walk underneath his legs while he is jumping with very little room for error to avoid getting hit, and in some cases, when you're on the wrong side and he walks into you, you're just guaranteed to take a hit. After you defeat Jabu, you are reunited with Flair, you get a kiss, and the game ends triumphantly in typical fashion. Response from gamers and critics to the Legendary Axe was very positive. There was high praise for the graphics, music, and gameplay. In fact, it won the award from American gaming magazine Electronic Gaming Monthly for the Turbografx Game of the Year in 1989. And another American magazine, Video Games and Computer Entertainment, gave it the Game of the Year award across all consoles, a huge achievement and a milestone for the Turbografx console. even if it would not have many successes after. With all of this recognition and praise behind the legendary axe, there was inevitably hype and demand for a sequel, and in 1990 it arrived in the form of the Legendary Axe 2. It is another platformer consisting of 7 levels this time, but it definitely feels a lot different to its supposed predecessor. First of all, your weapon doesn't really seem to be the Legendary Axe at all. It's the Royal Sword that can become either a chain and sickle, or eventually an axe if you pick up the corresponding items. Gone also is the unique charging meter that determines the strength of your attacks. You can still power up your weapon by collecting the weapon icons, but it is definitely a different system. We also get a new bomb item by pressing the run button, which can be picked up from defeating enemies, and when used, deals damage to all enemies on screen, which can be useful if you remember to use them. The story also seems to bear no relation to the original. The story in the manual mentions the sting of Cold Steel returns, obviously a reference to the name of the legendary axe in the previous game, but they don't refer to the legendary axe or sword or whatever by that name. As for the story itself, it features none of the original characters or settings, and has a lengthy introduction in the instruction manual. The dark and evil reign of the wicked King Drodam finally came to an end when he was defeated by our hero, Brace. The darkness and evil of the past faded away, and Brace was crowned king. Once again, peace and prosperity returned to the ancient kingdom. Soon after ascending the throne, King Brace married his childhood sweetheart Grace, whom he had rescued from the evil King Drodam. King Brace and Queen Grace. Brace and Grace. Okay. Anyway, this goes on, and none of it plays any part in the game's story, nor is it referenced, and as mentioned, doesn't even refer to its predecessor. Long story short, Brace and Grace die. A war of succession breaks out between their children, and 2 rivals emerge: Prince Sirius, who you play as, and Prince Zack. In the opening cutscene, you see Zack defeat Sirius and knock him off the castle. You, as Sirius, pick up the legendary Royal Sword and head off to defeat Prince Zack and take your rightful place as king. One thing you'll notice about this game is that the graphical style is completely different. Gone are the colourful backgrounds which are so notable in the first, and replaced with a much darker colour palette, that while still look decent for the time, are completely different to the first game. The gameplay has you typically platforming through levels, and attacking enemies using the sword, chain and sickle, or axe. You can also, strangely enough, and unlike the first game, jump on most enemies to defeat them, although this doesn't seem advisable for a guy who's not wearing shoes, or anything else but his underwear. Starting off in Stage 1, the mountain entrance, we go through a typical selection of stages, although each one does have a unique look and setting. We move to the second stage, the water caverns, which requires some platforming skills to jump up a large waterfall. Stage 3 has you navigating the underground temple, with dinosaur skeletons that burst out of the walls, and a boss which is a little guy with a big ball, which, when killed, takes on a life of its own for some reason. Stage 4 is the Skull Dungeon, where you must move upwards through the level, rather than left to right. This is one of the more annoying levels, as there's a lot of platforms which fall as you jump on them, sending you back quite often. The boss is this self-replicating woman doll thing that duplicates itself, and when hit, spawns a standard enemy for you to defeat as well. The next level is the Crypts of Slime, a graphically interesting level as the walls crawl with slime as if they are alive. Enemies in this level include a robot chicken thing? Is that a robot? Are there robots in this game now? I don't know. Level 6, the Cliffs of Chaos, is definitely the most annoying level. Level 4 definitely trained you for this one, as you'll be spending a lot of time jumping upwards. The difference though, is that you can be knocked down, all the way down. Seriously, I got knocked off the top so many times by this one enemy that knocks you back when you try to hit him. On top of this, you have lightning strikes randomly through the level which can damage you, and from what I could tell, there is no pattern or sequence to these strikes, meaning you just have to hope that you don't have a bolt land on you and take damage. The final level, the Royal Palace, is some kind of sci-fi castle? There's robots and lasers apparently, so I guess that cursed chicken looking thing in level 5 was a robot after all. This level is somewhat of a maze like the first game's last level, but it's all one room, so it's a case of trying out every possible branch to find the right way, all within the time limit. The shift from fantasy to this sci-fi setting just seems so strange though. The final battle with Prince Zack is fairly simple, until he turns into some giant eye creature, which is a bit more of a challenge. When Zack is finally defeated, you take the throne and it turns out you're not much better than Zack himself, as you laugh manically on your new throne. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I'm not sure at this point, an assassin jumps out at you and the screen fades to black, perhaps signifying that the cycle of conflict and succession continues no matter who is on the throne. An interesting twist that befits the darker tone of the game, but not a rewarding payoff for getting through this tricky game. The huge differences in terms of graphics, gameplay, and story between Legendary Axe 1 and 2 make it difficult to recognise the second as a sequel in anything but name. Combined with the fact that the game was made by different developers, makes me think that this game was meant to be a completely different game entirely, and rebranded as the Legendary Axe 2 at some point in its development, after the first became so popular. But I can't find any concrete evidence of this. Regardless, the Legendary Axe 2 just feels a bit of a mess in terms of the world it creates. It's fantasy, which suddenly becomes sci-fi, and back again. While the variety is nice, it only really works if it's still consistent. In terms of the gameplay, the platforming and combat feel tighter and more responsive than the first game, and the game maintains the tough but fair difficulty curve of the first one, requiring you to learn enemy patterns to overcome the levels, without relying too much on cheap gimmicks, apart from that damned lightning. Unfortunately, the series never continued after these two games. The Turbografx console faded away after the release of the Mega Drive and the SNES, and its library of games has rarely been re-released. Some Turbografx games did make an appearance on the Wii's Virtual Console, but never the Legendary Axe games, which is strange considering they were two of the system's most popular games. It's difficult to pick which one of these games is the better one. They are both very similar in their difficulty and gameplay, but vastly different in their story and aesthetics. The first one definitely broke new ground with its graphics and music, but can feel a bit clunky in terms of its controls. The second one feels smoother in its gameplay, but the sense that the game has no overall consistent style and consists of whatever fantasy, sci-fi, or creepy floating dolls that came to mind when developing the game. Despite their flaws, they're definitely worth checking out if you want a fair challenge and some good old-fashioned platforming. Thanks for checking out this video game retrospective on the Legendary Axe 1 and 2. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel, it really helps. You can also follow me on Twitch, where I play more retro games, and support on Patreon for as little as £1 a month. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.